Welcome to the News9 Plus Show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. A US District Court in New York has indicted an Indian national, Nikhil Gupta, on charges of attempting to murder an attorney and political activist on US soil. The 52-year-old Indian national Gupta is believed to be involved in narcotics trafficking and gun running. The case pertains to June 2023, where it says Gupta attempted to assassinate this attorney and political activist on US soil. Joining us in the studio today is Dr. Surat Singh, Supreme Court lawyer, and of course my colleague Aditya Raj Kaul. Dr. Singh, welcome to the News9 Plus Show. You've read the indictment that the US has just uploaded yesterday. What are your thoughts on this? How serious is this case?
Well, there are two counts on which indictment has been made. Indictment is like an allegation.
Right.
Like in India, you call it framing of charges.
Yes.
So the indictment count are that you conspired by hiring an assassin to murder a US citizen, and you delivered $15,000.
Right.
You also traveled different countries for this purpose. So you are the part of conspiracy.
Right.
If the conspiracy and allegation are proved correct, then the punishment is of 10 years on each count.
On each count, right.
Now, in American system is that unlike us, apart from the judge, there are 12 members of the jury.
Right.
Members of the jury are chosen from the American citizens just on a blind basis.
Yeah.
They can disqualify if they know anything about the case already, or if they are biased.
Right.
So the effort is to have an impartial trial.
Right.
Now, unlike our system, there they take the right of liberty very seriously.
Right.
It means all the safeguards will be provided to make sure that no innocent person is convicted.
Right.
And no criminal is also left out.
Right.
So their system to that extent is far more effective.
Aditya, since you've been tracking this case as well, are we absolutely sure that this activist that the indictment mentions is indeed Gurpatwant Singh Pannun?
Well, yes, there were media reports, but nothing for certain has been said officially yet. India has also not revealed any names. It has refused and refuted any kind of charges. But there have only been media reports so far quoting sources in the National Security Council, perhaps in the CIA and the Department of Justice in the United States. That indicates that perhaps it was Gurpatwant Singh Pannun. In fact, Pannu himself has been claiming that yes, he is the man who was to be eliminated.
Right.
But there's a larger question here.
Yeah.
Till now, there are mostly media speculations on what exactly has happened.
Yeah.
Apart from that, this character, Nikhil Gupta, that is being mentioned, could be an arms dealer, could be a drug trafficker, could be a criminal himself.
Yeah.
What associates him with the Indian government, or how is he being said as the representative of the Indian government? At the same time, they reveal that he was in touch with someone who is part of the Indian government and perhaps was part of some agency as a senior field officer who is given battle tank training, etc. And if there is somebody from the CRPF certainly is not given any kind of battle tank training.
Right.
They are given training, commando style training.
Right.
They are given training as an additional police force for riot control, for policing needs, but not like the army or the armored corps, with battle tanks or other sophisticated equipment.
Right. So, Dr. Singh, since you're literally an expert on the US criminal justice system, I mean, we've spoken in the past on several cases involving Indian nationals. How, there have been several cases in the past of Indian nationals being indicted in the US, and indeed they faced trial. How different is this case of Nick Gupta from those previous cases?
Now, one remarkable change after when Donald Trump became the president, we have this new theory called alternative facts.
Right.
Earlier, at least there was a certainty, there are facts.
Right.
But now there are alternative facts.
Yeah.
So now to what extent the story, as Aditya rightly pointed out, by media is to be believed, that who is really this Nikhil Gupta?
Right.
And our Ministry of External Affairs have appointed an independent investigation committee to find out that what is all fuss about.
Right.
So on the one hand, the trial will go in USA,
Yes.
but at the same time, we are investigating because we are against terrorists.
Yes.
But we are not in the business of eliminating terrorists.
On foreign soil.
On foreign soil.
Right. And
so
Aditya, what do we know so far about this committee that the MEAs appoint? And there's been a very marked difference in the way the Indian government has reacted to Canada's allegations vis-a-vis this case.
Well, India respects and understands that there's a bilateral relations with US that goes, decades far. And at this moment also, the strategic defense and intelligence cooperation is very strong between US and India. So while these allegations have been discussed, behind closed doors for last several months, there was the US National Security Advisor, the CIA chief who were in New Delhi in August and in October to discuss the same. Of course, it is being said that NSA Ajit Doval also had conversations with his counterpart. But as I said, most of these are media speculations. The independent probe committee has been ordered by India because, India knows the reality. The facts, so-called facts that have been revealed by the US or the alternate facts. This is a stated fact in the sense that drug trafficking, criminals, engaged in eliminating people has been happening for years.
Yes.
India has 26 such extradition requests pending with Canada and no action has been taken. Similarly with the US, on one hand there is Gurpatwant Singh Pannun, on other hand there are Arsh Dalla and other criminal gangsters staying on US soil, part of organized crime syndicate, drug trafficking, killing, contract killing, and yet there is no response or reaction at all. In fact, I'll tell you my own example. I've been covering the Khalistani terror for last decade or so. I have personally received threats from Gurpatwant Singh Pannun and the SFJ, and thanks to him I am being provided security. So it's a stated fact that Pannu is a designated terrorist, a dual citizen of US and Canada, and yet evidences have been shared with US and Canada both, but there's no action at all.
Dr. Singh, how do you explain this? This is a question that Aditya and me have agonized for a long time. How is a dual US-Canadian national able to preach hatred against India so freely and threaten diplomats, threaten the safety of airline passengers? And he's been doing it for a period of months. And conversely, we would never allow an Indian national to use Indian soil to preach hatred against the United States or target, threaten US diplomats. What explains this dichotomy?
See, on the one hand, India has so much respect for rule of law.
Right.
So at international arena, we always advocate that rule of law is to be followed. And we have treaty with America also in so many areas.
Right.
But at the same time, American soil is so much open for so many, it is almost a refuge for scoundrels.
Right.
Now,
so freedom of expression
sometimes has gone too much.
Misused, gone too far.
And too far. And to that extent, sometimes it is difficult even for America to handle the crimes which have happened over there.
Right.
And that's why so many people do not get convicted. And that's why we want to know the truth.
Right.
And that's why Ministry of External Affairs have said, okay, we take these allegations seriously. And let's see who this Nikhil Gupta is. Supposing he's a trafficker or drug dealer. And somebody is just using the name or misusing the name. Then Indians and Indian government is not to be maligned for that. So we will cooperate fully with America in the fair investigation.
What do we know, Aditya, about this investigation that Dr. Singh mentioned, that the MEA has very speedily appointed this committee, and where do you see this going?
Well, as of now, if you ask me about the relations between India and US, I don't think that this particular case is going to ruin the relationship. There have been far worse, cases in the past as well. Be it diplomatic ties, be it nuclear deals, be it the Devyani Khobragade case, or many others.
I think the Indo-US, that's a given. The Indo-US relationship is far too important to be spoiled by incidents like this.
But as I said, we have encountered over the past many decades, I guess for past at least 4 decades, that many countries, I'm not naming any particular country, but many countries have been using such separatist organizations, such threats, such intimidation as a part of their foreign policy goals. And especially with India, that has been seen often, and we've seen India tackle that. So India is very much capable of tackling this as well. This might have come as a shock sometime around June and July, But I think a lot of conversations have happened since. I can also tell you when it comes to Canada, a lot of background talks are underway, backroom talks are underway. Ajay Bisaria and Vikas Swarup, in fact, have met their old counterparts, Nadir Patel and the current High Commissioner, and they're trying that at least in the diplomatic arena, conversations move forward, the normalization of ties really happens. But unfortunately, on that Niger case, it's continuously a sticking point still, because there also a trial will be beginning. Even though I've been speaking to the Indian intelligence officers and they've been telling me that Canada and US both don't have a shred of evidence.
They don't have any evidence in this case. But Aditya, do we know that the Indian government did ask for Pannun's extradition?
I'm not sure about Pannu, but I am sure of 26 extradition requests that are sent out, which includes a lot of Khalistanis in Canada as well as in US. And India has been asking US to act against the Khalistanis who attacked our consulate in San Francisco and have continuously also desecrated the Mahatma Gandhi statue outside the Indian embassy in Washington DC.
Again, Dr. Singh, this question, I mean, how is it the United States and Canada provide sanctuary to all these people who are doing all these things, freely?
These people present themselves as victim of operation of Indian government. Of 1984 riots and others are taken as an example. So in fact, American government is not properly informed. The kind of ground, say for example, if a person seeks asylum on the basis that because of dowry demand, the entire family is to be eliminated. Now it takes time before the facts come. When the facts come, of course, American government and other governments are quite efficient. But till the facts come, they give a benefit of doubt. That if you are saying something on a humanitarian ground, let's keep you for a while. So most of the time, American government itself become victim of wrong propaganda. And since it takes time to find the truth, they take the advantage of that.
And then over the years, America has and Canada has become this heaven for these kind of separatist elements.
Like for example, when I was studying in USA, we were able to invite General Buller, the person who was organizing all this, just to understand his point of view. Now it was possible in America to hear that kind of a debate. In India, it is not possible. So in a certain sense, that there is a robust freedom over there. But at the same time, we have to make sure that freedom of expression is one thing, and preaching hatred against particular community or state or secession. Pannu is saying that the state of Punjab should be seceded from India. Now it's a clear case of international terrorism. And I'm sure our Honorable Prime Minister must have discussed that with President Biden. And whether it's my friend President Obama or Biden, they or Clinton, they understand India.
Aditya, I want to bring you in on this.
I wanted to understand the legal, cases as well, because in diplomacy, sir, Canada has been repeatedly saying and using the term we have credible allegations. US, on the other hand, has also been saying that this is an indictment. No facts or evidences have been put in the public domain. More so with Canada because it's been happening for more than 2 months now. Do you think that these governments, now that they've gone public, they've spoken inside the parliament as well, they should reveal at least some evidence in front of the people?
See, as far as the indictment is concerned, if you see the indictment carefully, it's a federal court. And it says defendants. Defendant can be in a civil suit. So they are not saying the accused. So they have made a very clear distinction. That Nikhil Gupta is shown as a defendant.
As a defendant and not a... What's the breakdown this...
Could he be a witness? Could he be involved as a witness in this?
At later stage. See, there is one concept which in India had started recently, but in America quite well, called plea bargaining.
Plea bargaining.
So plea bargaining is that if you cooperate with the prosecutor and save the time of the court, they can either make you an approver or they can reduce the sentence, provided you cooperate with them. So we don't know what the true credentials of Nikhil Gupta's are. Supposing if he's a trafficker or druggist or something, and then for the lesser punishment, if plea bargaining is there, then it might take a different color altogether.
So we don't know what exactly is going on. All we have for now is that indictment
But
document.
one danger is that instead of judge, there is a jury. And whether it's a jury means common people
Right.
in India or in America,
Yeah.
it's very easy to make the jury emotional
Right.
on certain propaganda as opposed to strict access of the evidence. So that we have to watch out.
Sanjeev, I'll tell you also one example that just came to my mind when Sir actually spoke about plea bargain.
Yes.
You know, many years ago, there was a case of Ghulam Nabi Fai that happened in US, who was acting on the behest of the ISI
move,
who was not registered as a lobbyist as per the US law, and was lobbying continuously, receiving money from the Pakistan ISI. He was indicted, he was convicted, I think to 10 years in prison. Finally, he had a plea bargain, and after some time, a couple of years in prison, he was released.
Right.
Today, Ghulam Nabi Fai continues to operate from US, receiving money, etc.
Yes.
And in fact, I did a sting operation on Ghulam Nabi Fai a few years ago, in which he openly confessed that, you know, this particular Pakistani ambassador is good, he sends a lot of money, but this particular Maliha Lodi is good, but the other one is not sending enough money.
Meanwhile, let's watch this story on a wave of gangland killings in Canada that has Khalistani separatists running for cover. Meanwhile, let's watch this story on a wave of gangland killings in Canada that has Khalistani separatists running for cover.
It's a well-known fact that Pakistan is supporting and funding them for a long time. But don't discount what I said before, that now they are raising local funding as well. They have local support as well. So they don't depend upon total Pakistani funding now. They can raise a lot of funds themselves.
Meanwhile, several pro-Khalistan terrorists in the US, UK, Canada, Australia, as well as Pakistan are running for cover after deaths of prominent separatists under suspicious circumstances. While the Khalistanis blame Indian agencies, the deaths continue to be shrouded in mystery. Hardeep Singh Nijjar, Paramjit Singh Panjwar, Avtar Singh Khanda and Harmeet Singh are among those who have died abroad. What caused their mysterious deaths? Blaming India for the deaths of pro-Khalistan leaders, Gurpatwant Singh Pannun, chief of pro-Khalistan group Sikhs for Justice, which has been banned by the Indian government, announced a reward of $125,000 to anyone who gives information about the foreign visits of Union Home Minister Amit Shah, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, and Indian High Commissioner to Canada, Sanjay Kumar Verma.
We will respond, and India.
Based in New York, Pannu is infamous for advocating a separate state for Sikhs in Punjab through anti-India aggressive videos in which he provokes violence. In the year 2022, Interpol rejected India's request for a red corner notice against Pannu due to insufficient information.
Well, Pannu is in hiding at the moment. What type of a Khalistani leader is he? He is afraid of his life. He must come out openly and say whatever he wants to say in a constitutional manner.
He's creating a movement. He's creating kind of support within the Sikh community. He's creating divide among Hindus and Sikhs overseas, and he hopes that this will take place in Punjab also. So it's a kind of incremental approach. It is not going to create Khalistan, but it is going to create a lot of trouble, which it is creating.
India, we are going to respond bullet with bullet and bullet with bomb.
Whenever he speaks, he spews venom. I have never seen him speaking with some logic or some reasonability or discussing or doing some debate with reasonability.
In 2001, Dr. Jagjit Singh Chauhan, considered to be the main ideologue and brain behind the Khalistan movement, met former Prime Minister Chandrasekhar and swore by the unity and integrity of the country. Unlike Chauhan, today's flag bearers of the Khalistan so-called cause are attacking India's integrity and sovereignty.
Last question, Dr. Singh, where do you see this trial headed now? Will it be over in months or will it take a year? Give us an idea of...
Well, American system is much faster, obviously, than ours. But their another element is grand jury.
Right.
So once the trial starts, it goes not only from days to days, but hour to hour. And the grand jury is not released till they give the decision.
Yes.
So once it starts, it takes a couple of weeks to find the... But before that, collection of evidence takes a lot of time. So much will depend on how much evidence has been collected by the prosecutor so far. They call it district attorney of New York so far, and how convincing that evidence is.
And this trial could very well get over in a few months from now.
It might get over as early as 3 months. Or maybe if there is much more evidence and all that, about a year or so. But it does not take years together as in our system.
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Singh. We'll keep coming back to you for your insights on this peculiar case, the case of the murder plot against a United States activist. The United States is very clear about its national security goals and how it reacts to those that threaten the United States. Now, we looked at two recent cases, the case of Anwar al-Awlaki and David Coleman Headley. Now, both these cases are linked to the United States' global war on terror that they embarked on after the 9/11 attacks. The case of Anwar al-Awlaki, Aditya, US national Al-Qaeda operative who preached hatred and attacks against the United States from his safe haven in Yemen. And how does the United States react to that?
Well, firstly, there are no rules of war for the United States. There are no rules on counter-terrorism for the United States.
Right.
You have Osama bin Laden, the biggest example on the screen. You know, there's a Navy SEAL raid that happens in Abbottabad in the middle of the night. And, you know, all sovereignty, all bilateral agreements, all international commitments are completely violated.
Violated, suspended.
The world also unites, you know, because this is a fight against terror. Then why not, you know, agree that all countries share the same values, the same kind of spirit, the same kind of actually, you know, democratic right to actually target terrorists anywhere on the planet. You know, you can't have different rules in US and entirely different rules in Yemen, Pakistan and other places.
Right. So the lesson here is that do as we say, but don't do as we do. That seems to be what the United States is telling the rest of the world. Of course, we are not for a minute advocating assassinations or targeted killings of anyone. This is bad. This is against any international norm or any civilized society. But if you look at the way the United States has conducted its global war on terror, it's assassinated a record number of individuals overseas who were perceived to be threats to the mainland United States, especially after 9/11, individuals who could influence and launch attacks against the United States. The case of Anwar al-Awlaki, a US national, a preacher, based in Yemen, assassinated by a CIA drone. It's never publicly acknowledged by the United States, but it's clear that Awlaki was on a hit list and was taken out by the Obama administration. And of course, David Coleman Headley. Aditya, the double agent, the US double agent inside the Lashkar-e-Taiba, a US citizen, drug trafficker who operated in the tribal badlands of Unpack because the United States figured that they could use him to locate Osama bin Laden. Headley was providing a steady stream of intelligence to the United States. He was a double agent. The US passed some of that intelligence to Indian authorities from 2006 onwards, which is how we get those 26 alerts between 2006 and 2008. But they never gave us the full picture. And we spoke to then NSA, M.K. Narayanan, to know more about David Headley. Let's listen.
I would say, as it is to be expected, the scale of the attack was something that we were surprised at. There have been periodic attempts, because the period between, I would say, 2002 till about 2010, there are a whole lot of attacks. The Pakistanis had set up an organization called the Indian Mujahideen, and we were accustomed to the Pakistan acting, or the Indian Mujahideen acting as a proxy for Pakistan, carrying out various attacks. And we had a 2006, there were attacks on the trains in Bombay and whatnot. So when this happened, the scale of the attack was there. There was some information that was shared by the Americans that there might be some kind of a problem, but therefore the fair amount of security had been increased during that period. But the scale of what was being done, some of it which probably the Americans had, but because David Hadley was a double agent, the Americans did not want him to be fully exposed. So all that he probably shared with the Americans was not shared with us in terms of intelligence. If we had that, I'm sure that we would have been able to deal with the situation far better. So yes, the scale of the attack surprised us. I would even say shocked us.
So that was the former NSA M.K. Narayanan, Aditya, on the fact that the United States could have prevented 26/11 if it had given us enough intelligence, if it had said more, but they chose not to. That's a very damning revelation, and that again tells you how the United States conducts its national security and its foreign policy. It's a lesson for the rest of the world. Do as we say, not as we do. Speaking of threats to Indian diplomats, 40 years ago, an Indian diplomat, Ravindra Mhatre, was kidnapped and murdered in cold blood. His murder continues to be one of the biggest unsolved mysteries until now. My colleague Aditya Raj Kaul pursued this case for several months, and he came up with a startling conclusion: the name of Ravindra Mhatre's assassin and where he lives now. Let's watch this excerpt from the show dropping tomorrow.
It was my 14th birthday, and my dad had told my mother that he would be bringing a cake home. We were supposed to go to a colleague's place for dinner. We were all dressed up and waiting, and no sign of him. And he never came home.
A 49-year-old Birmingham-based
Indian diplomat vanishes. On birthday, daughter waits
for missing father.
KLA claims responsibility
Demands
Kashmiri separatists.
Maqbool Bhatt's release. Abducted diplomat.
Found murdered in Leicestershire.
From geopolitics, we move on to cricket politics. Rahul Dravid is back as Team India coach, but just for 7 months. His 2-year contract as the head coach of the Indian men's team ended with the last ball of the World Cup final on the 19th of November. His stint saw the Indian team reach the top of the ICC rankings in all 3 formats: the finals of both the World Test Championship, the 50 over World Cup, and the semi-finals of the T20 World Cup. Meha, joining me now is my colleague Meha Bharadwaj. Meha, 7 months for the wall.
Yeah.
What's up?
So I get the sense that BCCI wanted to continue with Rahul Dravid, but
Right.
I think they are not very clear as of now whether Rahul Dravid is the right fit for T20
Right.
and basically all 3 formats for the next 2 years. And I get the feeling that it is more to continue with that, so that, because he's put some structure in place, and you want to have that continuity. The next T20 World Cup is in June next year,
Right.
which is 7 months from now.
Yeah.
So I think the BCCI wanted that continuity in place. And Rahul Dravid himself, he has been, he's been someone as a coach who's helped in building this team.
Right.
And when I say building this team, of course, the results are for everyone to see that
Of course.
we didn't win the World Cup, we didn't win the World Test Championship final, we
Right.
didn't win the T20 World Cup, but what we are seeing is that it's a more dominant team.
Yeah.
There are players in this side who he's
Right.
nurtured, players like Shubman Gill,
Yeah.
the camaraderie within the team, the kind of culture that he, along with Rohit Sharma, have
Yeah.
created in the dressing room. I think that is the reason that BCCI wants to continue with him at least for the next 7 months.
What is it about this Jugalbandi, this Rohit Sharma and Rahul Dravid Jugalbandi? How is it different from any other such thing in the past?
I think because their vibe is the same, you know, that's the word that kids are using today, vibe. I think their vibe is very calm and balanced, which is what Rohit Sharma kept harping on even before the final of the World Cup. He said, listen, we've got a very nice environment within the dressing room. Everybody's calm and balanced. And I feel like the wall is the epitome of calm and balanced, right?
Of course.
So I feel that both of them think in a similar way. I mean, of course, Rahul Dravid himself had said even after the World Cup final, when India lost the final, he'd come for the press conference. And I was there, and he said that, look, the guys are heartbroken. That dressing room is a really sad place right now. Everybody is disappointed, they're heartbroken, but this is sport and you move on. So the sense I get is when I see him and when I see Rohit Sharma is that they don't see this, oh my gosh, this is the end of the world, or oh my gosh, we've got to win this. I think it's more about, listen, let's put our process in the right way and let's see what we can do. And they both imbibe the same philosophy. So I think that's why,
that's really important, isn't it? And what are those big challenges going to be in the next 7 months? 7 months is like a ridiculously short amount of time.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge right now is to figure out the future of Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli in white ball cricket, specifically in T20s. Now, after the T20 World Cup last year, we've not seen Rohit Sharma as well as Virat Kohli play T20Is.
Right.
So what is the future? Are you seeing them back in that format, or do you want to look beyond them? If you want to look beyond them, then you go into a rebuilding phase. You need to figure out what your core team is going to be because you don't have enough time. So that is going to be a huge challenge. Do you want to carry on with both? Do you want to carry on with just one? Even your bowlers are aging. Mohammad Shami, he's old. Jasprit Bumrah, what is the future that you have for him? So I think all of that will be the area where they'd be discussing that, and we will be wondering what decision to take on that.
Interesting. It's a fin-de-siècle moment for the Indian cricket team in that sense that one never really thought that all of these players that you mentioned would ever age and they would go on forever, but clearly time's running out. Thank you very much, Meha, for your insights. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you so much.
India's GDP growth for the second quarter is a handsome 7.6%. RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das had hinted last month on a possible surprise on the upside, but most economists had projected a 6.4 to 7% growth range. Credit rating agency ICRA and SBI Research had projected 7% growth rate. RBI's own projections were 6.5% for the quarter as well as the financial year. Remember, India grew at an even higher 7.8% in the first quarter. All eyes are now on the rating agencies, the central bank and analysts to see if the annual growth forecast also gets revised on the upside. 80 years ago, thousands of US aircraft flew hazardous missions from British-ruled India into China. These aircraft flew over the Himalayas and their missions were called the Hump missions. 650 US aircraft crashed while flying these hazardous missions, killing thousands of aircrew. Now, India and the United States have collaborated on a museum in Arunachal Pradesh. We leave you with this interview my colleague Ashish Sharma did with the museum director, Okentine. Thanks for watching.
So, from our perspective, as of today, we know about close to 30 aircrafts all over Arunachal from east to west. So, when the war was going on in the Second World War in the 40s, our parents' generation, they'll see these planes fly over their head, day in and day out, and lots of them crashed. Hunters will see these planes. Sometimes, human bodies were found, so things like that. So without any understanding the background of the whole thing, and it was a very, very tragic affair. Lots of young people died in the war. So in a way, it's closer for the families, who's lost their relatives in the war, some men of whom they had no idea where they were, where the bodies and where the remains were for the last 60 years. And on our part, we have some answers of, where these planes came from and what was the story about the gravity of the whole thing. So this basically is the, general outline of this museum.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And as the director of the museum, please tell us about the kind of efforts that you have put in to put together the museum and the exhibits.
Yeah, it's lots of hard work, we had to, to make a museum, you need some substantial artifacts. So what we have in the museum is, lots of parts and remains from these crash planes. And some places we have to hike about 6 to 7 days, going up to 13 to 14, 15,000 feet on the snow line in completely uncharted, wilderness. People don't go there, it's just lying there. The only way we know is when hunters encounter them. So, it's lots of hard work even to bring back. We have some things like machine guns, which weigh at least 50 kilograms. So I had my boys lugging it back from the jungle, trekking 4 or 5 days. So lots and lots of hard work. But, having understood what it means from a humanitarian perspective, the closer the family needs from this kind of memorial. So, that's motivates, or at least we can explain to the boys that, what it all means, all their hard work.
So the museum is called the Hump. So
Yeah,
why
the
is
Hump.
it called the Hump and why was it so difficult?
Well, you look up on history of the Second World War, basically when they were flying from Assam to China, there was this big mountain ranges, right? The Himalayas, the highest being Namche Barwa at 25,000 feet and, a few more. So that was the hump, basically. So when they fly over that mountain, they're over the hump. So that's the background of the name.
Right. Now, Ambassador Garcetti is the third American ambassador to visit the Arunachal Pradesh. And you mentioned the closure. So tell us, what did he say about the museum? And how do such visits bolster bilateral ties between India and America?
Yeah, I think definitely what draws people like the ambassadors and, general visitors from outside is our rich culture and pristine nature. The first thing Ambassador remarked when we got here is the fresh air, a break from the kind of air he's been breathing in Delhi. So that's one thing. But for them, it's in lots of ways, this museum has lots to do with Americans. Most of the airmen were Americans, and the war itself, the bigger part was played by Americans. So, most of the pilots and people who lost their lives were Americans. So they understand it's very, very important for them as well. And also, in a tragic way, we made this connection. Like, for example, the family members of some of those dead lost airmen, they're sending in photographs from those times, from the 40s of our region, from some of our villages. So it's like a mystery being open in some ways. So it's very, very fascinating that our culture and our history is connected with this incident.
Right. So the operation itself, the Americans called it one of the biggest historical transport achievements of the World War II. And why was it so difficult? You mentioned the hump was one of the reasons, the scale and the terrain. Why was it such a difficult operation for Allied troops?
Yeah, it was even bigger than the, some of the other aerial operations in history. So you think about the magnitude of it, they lost close to 700 planes and they lost, almost 2,000 airmen in the operation. So, and it's young men having come such a long, long way from home and, lost their lives here. So it was really, really big event and all kind of strategy, all kind of resources were put in, and other thing was the weather, the kind of weather we have here, tropical, thunderstorm is the worst kind of weather for flying. So the operation were mostly in June, July, and if they fly too close to Myanmar, they would encounter the Japanese, with their mosquito small fighters. So sometimes they would deliberately fly when the weather is bad. They would circle up to 15,000 feet and then go instrument. And the kind of navigational system those days was nothing like what we have now. So it's a very, very dangerous and vulnerable operation.